Welcome back to Newsmax Now. I'm Miranda Kahn. We recently spoke with Joe Gagliano. He's the author of a new book, No Gray Areas, where he talks about his role in the largest point shaving scandal in history. Gagliano was eventually caught, convicted, and he served in federal prison for coordinating and financing the 1994 Arizona State University point shaving scandal. Gagliano left prison in late 2000, to get his life back in order, and he did, buying up car washes and making money in real estate. But then Joe landed in prison again in 2008 due to a banking deal. His book, No Gray Areas, covers all of that, plus a whole lot more.
Take me back to 1993 and your involvement with this point shaving scandal with the 1993 Arizona State men's basketball team. How did you help orchestrate the largest point shaving scandal in history?
Well, 93, 94, I was trading bond futures at the Board of Trade in Chicago. My brother went to school at Arizona State University. And, I took trips out there. I was making a lot of money at a young age. I took trips out here, I should say, because I'm in Arizona now. And one of the gentlemen that lived next door to my brother at the time on campus was a bookmaker. On campus, and one of the basketball players, the leading player on the team, Headache Smith, got into him for some money for betting games and gambling. And the only way that Headache could see out of the debt was to fix a few games. And I was approached with this deal from Benny. I orchestrated it. I financed it. It was supposed to be 2 games on the onset. 2 games turned into 3 games turned into 4. And before we know it, a whole world of headache and a whole world of pain came after me.
Yeah, we're seeing some video right now of ESPN as recently as last year looking into the issue of point shaving. The book obviously focuses a lot on consequences. What was the single worst consequence that you had to deal with as a result of your story here?
Well, being labeled a felon, granted that case was 20 years ago, John, and I can tell you that label I really had a hard time shedding from myself. And I was always out to prove everyone that I was everyone that I was not that person of what we perceive a felon to be. And I was blessed. In the early 2000s. I built a pretty large company, but 2008, 2009 rolled around and I got kicked in the gut real hard. I got kicked in the gut when the financial world kind of collapsed, and I owned a bunch of real estate, and a piece of real estate I had needed financing on it badly, and I brought my father in for an SBA loan, and I'm the trustee of my father's estate, and all these other things that I could tell you that I tried to rationalize. But the truth of the matter is, when the loan docs came, my father was suffering from cancer, and I actually orchestrated and arranged for those loan docs to be signed without the proper power of attorney. And I got indicted again. In 2012 for conspiracy to commit bank fraud. And because of the prior, I had very little options to fight it. I had to take a plea, and I got sentenced again in 2013 to 30 months in prison. And so as I sat in prison for the time that I was away, I can tell you there was a lot of anger, but I finally learned to understand the consequences of my decisions and not to rationalize any further the choices I made, and to look at my choices that they're either right or wrong, they're black or white. There simply is no gray. So that's really what I learned through the course of my journey.
Yeah, it took a couple of hard knocks to get that lesson, I guess, built into your head. But, we talked about ESPN looking at this issue. It seems like every March it comes up, the issue of point shaving in college basketball. Are you surprised that it is still an issue and that the NCAA seems to have such a hard time dealing with it?
John, I'm surprised it doesn't come up more often. And it's, as I wrote in the book, No Gray Areas, you can go to nograyareas.com. What I wrote in the book is that team sports today, they're pretty difficult to fix or to create any type of point shaving scandal in a team sport, John. What I'm going to say pretty comfortably, and I'll go toe to toe with anyone on this point, are that individual sports like tennis or MMA, are where there's personal performance linked to a gambling line. That's where you're going to see the issues come across a lot more frequently. But team sports, you talk about the NCAA not embracing it or not really talking about it anymore because there's nothing really been current. they made the month of March Gambling Awareness Month, but yet you really don't hear anything about it anymore.
Yeah, it's pretty ironic that they do that. Thanks for being with us, Joseph Gagliano. The new book is called No Gray Area. Thanks for being with us.
Hey, John, I appreciate the time. Thank you.
All right, March Madness going on. A lot of Las Vegas bookmakers heavily invested in this. A lot of office pools.
I wouldn't know anything about that.
Yeah, I don't do the office pool just because I'm so bad at it. But there is a fine line between that type of gambling and then when things can get really out of control.
Yes, and I'm kind of with you. Everybody always says, but that's why you'll win, because you don't know anything about it. Yeah.
It's one of those reasons, too, why the NCAA needs to take a closer look at how basketball players, football players are, rewarded for the effort that they put into the field of play. There is a huge incentive, maybe a moral hazard for them to do these point shaving scandals because it's so hard to detect, and a lot of them don't have a lot of cash on hand. Not that they should have a lot of cash on hand, they're college students, but it causes problems. Meanwhile, coming up next on Newsmax Now, you've heard the headlines. We're going to go lighten things up a bit with the punchlines. The Friday edition with a little St. Patrick's Day thrown in for good measure and some green beer. Still not too late to reach out to us, newsmax.com/comments, and on Twitter @NewsmaxNow. Reach us on Facebook, facebook.com/Newsmax.